Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim. Yatkripatamaham bande Shri Gurudintarinam. Yatkripatamaham bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Sukaram Bhavet. Smrite Vipritam Syat. Sri Chaitanyam Namamitam. Okay, so we'll start with chapter 26. Who would be sharing the screen?
I can share the screen, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Is it visible?
Wait, let me just.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
Who would like to volunteer to read? Sorry, I'm speaking on mute. Any volunteers? Okay, Anandita Mataji can read. Looks like Delhi is very cold. Mayapur today is a bit warm. We didn't need sweater during the day today. Okay. Please start. I don't know if you're on mute. Can't hear you.
Hare Krishna, Pranam, Prabhuji.
Your voice sounds very ecstatic. Your voice is breaking, sounds very ecstatic.
How is it now?
Yeah, now you become normal.
I'm waiting for the screen to come. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Chapter 26, the Bhattacharya is converted. For the impersonalists and the
Slowly.
Okay. Okay.
Slowly.
Okay. For the impersonalist and voidist philosophers, the next world is a world of senseless eternity and bliss. The voidist philosophers want to establish that ultimately everything is senseless. And the impersonalists want to establish that in the next world, there is simply knowledge without any activities. Thus, less intelligent Salvanists try to carry imperfect knowledge into the sphere of perfect spiritual activity. Because the impersonalist experiences material activity as miserable, he wants to establish spiritual life without activity. He cannot understand the activities of devotional service. Indeed, spiritual activity in devotional service is unintelligible to the voidist philosophers and impersonalists. The Vaishnava philosophers know perfectly well that the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can never be impersonal or void because he possesses innumerable potencies. Through his innumerable energies, he can present himself in multiple forms and still remain the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, despite expanding himself in multiple forms and diffusing his innumerable energies, he can maintain his transcendental position. Thus, Lord Chaitanya exposed many defects in the Mayavadi philosophy, and although the Bhattacharya tried to explain himself by logic and word jugglery, Lord Chaitanya was able to defend himself from his attacks. The Lord established that the Vedic literature is meant for three things: understanding our relationship with the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead, acting according to that understanding, and achieving the highest perfection of life, love of Godhead. Anyone who tries to prove, Mataji, can you scroll up a bit? Sushmita Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, I've done more.
Yeah, now it's okay. Anyone who tries to prove that Vedic literature aims at anything else must be a victim of his own imagination. The Lord then quoted some verses from the Puranas, by which he established that Sankaracharya was ordered to teach Mayavadi philosophy by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He quoted a verse from the Padma Puran, Uttarakhand 62.31, in which it is stated that the Lord ordered Mahadev, Lord Shiva, to present some imaginary interpretation of the Vedic literature to divert people from the actual purpose of the Vedas. In this way, try to make them atheists, the Lord said. After that, they can be engaged in producing more population. It is also stated in the Padma Puran, Uttarakhand 25.7, that the Lord Shiva explained to his wife Parvati that in the age of Kali, he would come in the form of a Brahman to preach an imperfect interpretation of the Vedas known as Mayavad, which in actuality is but a second edition of the atheistic Buddhist philosophy. Mataji. The Bhattacharya was overwhelmed by these explanations of Lord Chaitanya. After hearing Mayavad philosophy explained by Lord Chaitanya, he could not speak. After he had remained silent for some time, Lord Chaitanya said to him, "My dear Bhattacharya, don't be astonished by this explanation. Please take it from me that the devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the highest perfectional stage of human understanding. Indeed, it is so attractive that even those who are already liberated from become devotees by the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many such conversions in the Vedic literature. For instance, in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.10, the famous Atmaram verse describes how impersonalist sages who are absorbed in self-realization and liberated from all material attachments become attracted to devotional service by the various activities of Lord Krishna. Such are the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, in pure consciousness, the living entity understands himself as the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. Under the spell of illusion, a person accepts their gross and subtle bodies as his self. Such a conception is the basis of the doctrine of transference from spirit to matter. But the part and parcel of the Supreme is not eternally subjected to the gross and subtle bodily life. The gross and subtle coverings do not comprise the living entity's eternal form. They can be changed. Or the living entity can be freed entirely from the material existence. While the living entity is under the illusion that he is the body and the mind, however, he has certainly transferred his position from the spirit to matter. Mayavadi philosophers, taking advantage of this doctrine of transference, say that the living entity is under the wrong impression when he thinks himself to be the part and parcel of the Supreme. They maintain that the living entity is the Supreme himself. This doctrine cannot be tenable. The Bhattacharya then asked Lord Chaitanya to explain the famous Atmaram verse, for he desired to hear from the Lord himself. Lord Chaitanya replied that first of all, the Bhattacharya should explain the verse according to his own understanding. Then Lord Chaitanya would explain it. The Bhattacharya then began to explain the Atmanam Shlok using his methods of logic and grammar. Thus, he explained the Atmanam Shlok in 9 different ways. The Lord appreciated his erudite scholarship in explaining the verse and said, "My dear Bhattacharya, I know that you are a personal manifestation of the learned scholar Brihaspati and can explain any portion of the Shastras nicely. Yet, your explanation is more or less based on academic education only. But there is another explanation besides the academic scholarly one. Then, at the request of the Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya explained the Atmaram Shlok. The words of the verse were analyzed that thus Atmaramah cha muniyah nirgrantha api urukrame kurvanti ahetukim bhaktim it itham bhutagana ittam bhutaguna hari. This verse has already been explained in connection with the Lord's teachings to Sanatana Goswami. Without mentioning the nine explanations of the Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya explained the verse by analyzing these 11 words. In this way, he expounded 18 different explanations of the verse. In summary, he said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full of innumerable potencies. No one can estimate how many transcendental qualities he possesses. His qualities are always inconceivable, and all processes of self-realization inquire in a general way into the potencies and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the devotees of the Lord immediately accept the inconceivable position of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya explained that even great liberated souls like the Kumaras and Shukadev Goswami were also attracted to the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord. The Bhattacharya appreciated Lord Chaitanya's explanation, and he concluded that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Krishna himself. The Bhattacharya then began to deprecate his own position, relating that he had at first considered Lord Chaitanya to be an ordinary human being offense. He then fell down at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, deprecating himself and requesting the Lord to show his causeless mercy to him. Lord Chaitanya appreciated the humility of this great scholar and therefore exhibited his own form, first with 4 hands and then with 6 hands, Saddabhuj. Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya then repeatedly fell down at the Lord's lotus feet and composed various prayers to him. He was undoubtedly a great scholar, and after receiving the causeless mercy of the Lord, he was empowered to explain the Lord's activities in different ways. For instance, he was able to express the benefit of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It is said that at this time, Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya composed 100 verses in appreciation of the Lord's activities, and that those verses were so great that they could not be surpassed even by Brihaspati, the greatest learned scholar in the heavenly planets. The Lord was very much pleased to hear these 100 verses, and he embraced the Bhattacharya. The Bhattacharya became overwhelmed with ecstasy by the Lord's touch, and he practically fell unconscious. He cried, trembled, shivered, and perspired, and sometimes he danced and sang and fell at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. The Bhattacharya's brother-in-law, Gopinath Acharya, and the devotees of the Lord were surprised to see the Bhattacharya transformed into a great devotee. Gopinath Acharya then began to thank the Lord. It is by your grace only that Bhattacharya has been transformed from this stone-like position into such a devotee. Lord Chaitanya replied to Gopinath Acharya that it was due to a devotee's favor that a stone-like man could be transformed into a mild, flower-like devotee. Actually, Gopinath Acharya had sincerely wished that his brother-in-law, the Bhattacharya, would become a devotee of the Lord. He had sincerely desired that the Lord favor the Bhattacharya, and he was glad to see that his desire had been fulfilled by Lord Chaitanya. In other words, a devotee of the Lord is more merciful than the Lord himself. When a devotee desires to show his mercy to a person, the Lord accepts him, and by the Lord's grace to become a devotee.
Can you stop there, Mataji?
Yeah, sure, Prabhuji.
Okay.
I read it wrong. By Lord's grace, he becomes a devotee. Done.
Okay. There is something very important for us to learn here, which is that the Lord and knowledge about the Lord is not something that is accessible. So Bhagavad Gita has existed for the last 5,000 years. But neither the Lord nor the knowledge that He gave accessible. I'm talking in general. It is like an iron curtain. Unless one receives the mercy of the pure devotee. Krishna explains there in the Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvad darshinaha. So he says, just approach a self-realized person submissively, render service unto such a person, and through that person, through that process, transcendental knowledge is revealed. So, the first element of that process is to approach a pure devotee submissively. So, that's exactly how Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami approached Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They said that people call us great learned men, but actually we are great fools. We don't even know who we are. So Lord Chaitanya very much liked that attitude with which they approach him, because that attitude was their qualification to receive the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is a fact that no matter how much learned a person may be in this material world, he has no understanding of what the transcendental position of the Lord is. I'm sure that many of us may have read Amar Chitra Katha before we encountered Prabhupada's books, or we may have seen different things, maybe Mahabharat, maybe Ramayana, maybe so many things we have seen, or maybe so many things we have read. And I remember I had a cousin of mine who was a very voracious reader. So, and I lived in a joint family. So, I mean, my father and my father's brother. And so me and my cousins, we grew up together in the same house. So I recollect him reading the Mahabharata through the Amar Chitra Katha, not once, several times, over and over and over and over again. And despite that, I mean, of course, I also read because that book was always at home. But what difference did it make? Maybe some inspiration, maybe some nice thing, oh, maybe some lesson in morality. But when I encountered Srila Prabhupada's books, it was a different thing which happened. It's the same story of Krishna. Of course, not in this much detail in the Mahabharata. In fact, there's Amar Chitra Katha is Krishna also. All of this was there in our house. May not be in this much detail as in Krishna book, but Krishna book was a different category of literature. Is a different category of literature. What is the difference between this and Amar Chitra Katha? It is describing the same person. It is describing the same activities. So from a scientific point of view, they should all seem the same because the same description. Here is just more detail, that's all. Yet we know that there is no comparison. Why there is no comparison? Because the story in Krishna book is presented by Srila Prabhupada, and it is not a story when we read the Krishna book. It is a historical incident. Of course, we are reading Amar Chitra Kalsa. We may get some vague idea of some history, but we don't know. But when we read Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada presents Krishna as someone who appeared on this planet, and these things happened. And if we approach that same knowledge, same presentation of Krishna in a certain manner, it has a certain effect. The same cousin of mine who read Mahabharata much more than me, he also read the Krishna book. In fact, he read the Krishna book before me. Because of him, the Krishna book was there at home, Prabhupada's. I read it, he read it, I read it. But when I read it, it caused a revolution in my heart. Because I was reading it, trying to understand what is the absolute truth. What is it all about? So two people, one who has read Mahabharata even more than me, and who has read the Krishna book before me, it made no difference. No difference. Similarly, I had a friend of mine, we were exploring philosophy together. I read the Krishna book, and I remember that particular phrase which turned my life. I had studied both Eastern and Western philosophies, and both Eastern and Western philosophies speak of God as a power. So everything used to always be vague. There are a lot of things which were unresolved. So when I read the Krishna book, I knew that Prabhupada is speaking about a person, Krishna and Vrindavan and all these things. And it seemed very real. Yet I wasn't sure whether it was still theoretical in my mind. Not theoretical, very different experience, of course, reading the Krishna book. But it was not settled in my mind whether God is an energy or whether God is a person. So one day while reading the Krishna book, and Prabhupada uses this so many times, I had somehow did not looked up the dictionary. So the word impersonalist was not commonly found in other, you don't find that word easily in other philosophical books. They usually Prabhupada uses that expression called impersonalist, you know, and generally, I'm not saying that others don't use, but generally Prabhupada is the one who uses that expression. So Prabhupada uses the phrase called impersonalist rascals very commonly. So one day I decided to look up the dictionary for the meaning of this phrase, impersonalist rascals. And the moment I looked up the word impersonalist, I was shocked. I mean, of course, now all of us know what the meaning of the word impersonalist is. One who thinks that the absolute truth is not a person. You know, that's the meaning of impersonalist. And Prabhupada had used these two words together, impersonalist and rascals. So then it dawned upon me that either I accept what Prabhupada is saying, or I accept whatever else I had studied and read in Eastern and Western philosophy. It is either or. It is mutually exclusive, as they say in mathematics. So it really shook me when I read that. And this is around 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon. I had finished lunch, and I was reading the Krishna book. I had already read once. I was reading it the second time, and when I came across this phrase, I looked up the dictionary. So the moment I read this phrase, I understood what this word impersonalist means. So then I knew that this is like a turning point. I have to make my choice. So then the first thing that I did was, we have, like I said, I have this close friend of mine. We were exploring philosophy together. In fact, he had introduced me to Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra. Also, I used to chant Namaste Saraswati Deve. In fact, he told me it's some. He also didn't know. He told me it's Saraswati's mantra, because Namaste Saraswati is something, So I didn't know what it meant. Anyway, so sometimes we would chant together because we would study together. So we would chant that together, you know. So then he had also read the Krishna book by like me. So I went to his house. I took my bicycle, and I had to ride about 15-20 minutes, a little far. So then I went to his house and I told him, look, I took the Krishna book with me. Although he had the Krishna book also, but I took the Krishna book with me and I told him, look at this phrase, uh, impersonalist phrase, rascals. And I said that now we have to make a choice. Either we follow whatever else we were doing, we were studying whatever else we were studying, or we take to this Krishna book. So he was not very uh, impressed with my understanding, or he was not willing to take me so seriously. He said, no, don't. It's okay. I mean, he has said it like this. So let's let's not make any radical or abrupt changes. So, but at that point, I knew that I can't continue like this, because it is either or. So I made the conscious choice, that what Prabhupada has given, nobody else has given. The experience of Krishna. Although we had read Abdar Chitra Katha so many times, but Krishna was never attractive. It is the pure devotee who makes Krishna attractive. And I knew that if I had to plunge into this world, I had to accept what Prabhupada was saying. So I made the decision in my mind, from this point onwards, I will accept whatever Prabhupada says to be true. Although I didn't have the realization, but at least theoretically, from this point onwards, whatever Prabhupada says would be true. And the moment I made that decision, that transformed my life. That Krishna book was like part of life, in the sense that, how do you say, it is no more something you're reading in a book. Krishna book suddenly became, you're living that experience of the Krishna book. So from practical experience, I can clearly say that what is being described here by Prabhupada, what Gopinath Acharya says, is actually true. That although my cousin, who was younger than me, of course, I didn't say that, but he was younger than me, who had read the Mahabharata many more times, he read the Krishna book even before me, had not understood what Krishna was. There is not just reading which gives you an understanding of what Krishna is. It is that willingness to approach and accept something submissively, which makes the difference. Even my friend, although we're studying together, studying both philosophy and academics together, but nevertheless, when I went up to him on that day and told him that now we have to decide, he was not willing to decide. And he took to Krishna consciousness, I think, more than 2 years later, after that day when I met him. He still continued his whatever pursuits, spiritual pursuits, or exploratory pursuits, let me put it like that. So, what really makes a difference is that acceptance, is that attitude. So, therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Instruction, which is the first book we studied, that advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. Attitude. So, in the material world, the qualification to get somewhere, for example, you need to get placed into a very high position in society. So then you need to have certain academic qualifications. You need to have certain experience, work experience, and so many things. You have to prove yourself to be placed in the highest, in very high positions in society. Let's not forget, let's not miss this point that to be placed in the highest position ever that anyone can imagine is dependent on one's attitude. That's all. You don't need qualifications, you don't need knowledge, you don't need anything. You just need attitude. And in this world, people are very famous for, they say, look at what attitude he has. Attitude is a thing which can come easily to people. So if we, the only qualification that we need is the attitude, is the attitude. So then the Lord can bestow his mercy upon us. Krishna consciousness is a great science, but that entire science depends on attitude. If you have the attitude, you understand the science. If you don't have the attitude, you don't understand anything. Actually. You may imagine your understanding, but you don't understand anything. Understanding the science of Krishna consciousness is dependent on attitude. And when you have the attitude and you render service to the pure devotee with that attitude, then Divya Jnana Hriday Prokashito. The heart becomes enlightened. Divya Jnana is awakened within one's heart. That's the meaning. Which means that it is not some extraneous imposition. The Divya Jnana is there in our heart. We are all eternal associates of the Lord, actually. That's, I mean, eternal means eternal associate. That's we have an eternal constitutional relationship with the Lord. So when we get in touch with the pure devotee, that eternal connection with the Supreme Lord is revived. That revival can happen only by a combination of two things. As we study in the Damodar Leela pastime, which is that our efforts and Krishna's mercy. And Prabhupada clearly defines that Krishna's mercy comes through the mercy of his pure devotees. So we have to have the right attitude. And that attitude is not when we just study the books or when we perform some service in the temple. That attitude has to be a constant feature, just like breathing. So when that attitude is a constant feature, then the pure devotees bestow their mercy upon us. We can see even during Prabhupada's pastimes, Prabhupada had many disciples. But the amount of mercy that he bestowed upon each disciple was not the same. Please remember this. Every disciple does not get the same amount of mercy. The amount of mercy that is bestowed upon a disciple is dependent on the attitude of the disciple. So some of Prabhupada's disciples got so much mercy from Prabhupada because of their attitude. There was an instance where one of Prabhupada's disciples, during Prabhupada's own presence, said that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute the Sankirtan movement. So why are we emphasizing so much on book distribution? Why not spread the Sankirtan? So Prabhupada simply said, you can try your method, we will try our method. And we will see over time who's more successful. So this is a proper disciple who was not willing to accept Prabhupada's method of spreading or practicing or spreading Krishna consciousness. So it's not that he received the same mercy from Srila Prabhupada as someone else received. So different disciples received their mercy according to the gradations of their surrender, which is determined by their attitude primarily. So we need to understand that the science that we are studying and then we are practicing is entirely dependent on our attitude. If our attitude is not right, everything is, what do you say? I can't say everything is spoiled. We're not getting anywhere. We're not getting anywhere. So unless our attitude is proper, we cannot make tangible advancement in Krishna consciousness. Although we may be carrying out our chanting 16 rounds, but if our attitude is not right, then our progress is very slow. Very, very slow. Okay, I'll stop there. If there are any comments or questions, reflections. Yes, Anandita Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for explaining this part very beautifully. Uh, my little question that by the word attitude, does it mean that not accepting all the instructions of Prabhupada, or not believing it, or somehow leaving it that I don't understand, I don't want to follow?
Attitude is defined when by the Sri Guru Vandana song that we sing every day morning. So if we perform, no, if we are aligned with everything that is mentioned in that song, then that means we have the proper attitude. If we can check whether we have proper attitude by seeing, that's why we're singing every day also, no? So that we remain aligned, our consciousness remains aligned with the proper attitude, or has a proper attitude. So you take every verse, take every line of that Sri Guru Vandana and see where you stand in relation to that line. Are you like that or not? You know, or are you willing to be? Are you, or? It's like this. Arna koriho mane asha, right? So I have no other desire than this. Do we have the desire to be like this at least, even if we are not like that? No. So the attitude is defined. For us practically, if you ask practical life, this is what it means. Are we aligned with that song or not? We have to align our attitude, or bring our bring our attitude in line with that Sri Guru Vandana.
Nice. Thank you.
Prabhupada very simply defined that attitude. Okay, in two different phrases. He said, I never asked my Guru Maharaj any question except one question. How shall I serve you? And then he also said, I don't know Krishna, but I know my Guru Maharaj and he knows Krishna. So if you take these two phrases, the actual attitude of a disciple should be, let's say Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's God. Okay. So God is one who is always completely perfect and things like that. You cannot expect God to have anxiety, right? Well, then what kind of God is that? Right? But we have a God who's anxious, and we worship a God who's anxious, which is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what is his anxiety? His anxiety is that there are so many souls in this world who are bereft of Krishna consciousness. So he says, I am the only gardener. I need help. So there is a certain anxiety that the Supreme Lord whom we worship possesses. And that anxiety is transmitted through the parampara. So we are inheritors of the anxiety of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that anxiety of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also the anxiety of the Acharyas. Especially that's the anxiety of our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And Prabhupada knew that that was the anxiety of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. One day, as I explained last class, that when he was walking in Mayapur, he once looked at the moon and he was talking to his disciples, how fallen they've also become. So they're anxious. Para dukkha dukhi. They are anxious to see the suffering of the other living entities. So they want to relieve them of their suffering. The anxiety of the pure devotees is how shall every living entity be delivered. So when Prabhupada said, I only ask one question, how shall I serve you? Which means that he wanted to help his Guru Maharaj in establishing the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is the only thing which Prabhupada did also. Started Bhakti Garden magazines, went around the world, establishing the Krishna conscious movement at such a late age. That is the mood of a proper follower. How shall I relieve the anxiety of the acharyas? So, why did I ask? Why did I bring up this question? Actually, why did I say this? What was your point? I'm forgetting.
I asked about the attitude.
Yeah. So attitude is this, that we need to think, what shall we do for the acharyas? That's the correct attitude. But due to the influence of modern thoughts, or not modern thoughts, mundane thoughts are always like that. Instead of thinking, what shall I do for Srila Prabhupada? What can I do for my superiors? What can I do for the previous acharyas? Instead of thinking like that, we shouldn't be thinking, we shouldn't be thinking, what can they do for me? What can they do for me? So, because I need to feel ecstatic, what can they do for me? I need to feel like this. I need to be better situated. I need to do this. And yeah, come on, it's common sense. If I'm going to be in this kind of situation, how can I practice Krishna consciousness nicely? So how shall I approach somebody to get some blessings so that I become very happily situated? So that is not our attitude. We don't care, as pure devotees say, whether we live in heaven or hell. Of course, it's not easy. It's easier said than done. But the point is that attitude we should maintain. That what shall I do for you? I shall not ask anything. I shall not ask anything from the Lord or from the pure devotee. I shall only render service to them. And we have full faith that by service to the pure devotees, success is guaranteed.
Thank you, Roji.
Rukmini, Harisevani Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Nam. Prabhuji, I wanted to ask some maybe first thing it comes to my mind that I don't think so that I can do anything for acharyas. So because even if we distribute one book, that is also by their mercy we are able to. So actually, my effort is nothing. It is just only the desire. Prabhupada also said like that I have only one qualification that I just tried. I'm just forgetting the exact. He just tried. He was not having. Uh, he just uh, he just tried. So
Okay.
and two things are there. First thing is this. Secondly, everybody, I think, in my case particularly, first I asked for the journal. Journally, I asked. Second, in my case, my health is so pathetic. My prarabdha is so like, my bhakti is not so strong. So I maybe conquer my prarabdha. My health is so pathetic. It's not like now, it's been 2 decades. So in my case, I cannot do anything. if somehow I just, I'm just able to be, and I'm just able to survive myself in the process. So this is like me. So, and for the first question, I wanted to ask one more thing, that whatever one is doing, actually, we say na, that book prescription is already done. You just become the medium and get the mercy. So these two things are coming, Prabhuji. That again coming, I cannot do anything for acharyas. Acharyas is so much able to do, but they have not done, because it's not like that Bhakti Vinod Thakur could not do, Bhakti Saraswati Maharaj could not do, but they left everything for Srila Prabhupada. So it's not like that all six Goswami were not able to build a big temples in Vrindavan, but they can get all the money they like this. So this is, if you can please help me.
Yeah. I mean, I see Lord Chaitanya is God. So, so why is he saying this, right? So, one thing that we need to understand is that the answer lies in the very question that you asked. Actually, we are not some. We are the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It is called the Krishna family, correct? So the very nature of the Krishna family is we all do it together. So that's how it is. It's even the word Sankirtan. What does it mean? Some complete glorification. Everybody joins together and does it. So that is the very nature of dynamic spiritual activity. It's the constitutional nature of Krishna's family that everything is done together. That is what enhances the rasa. So yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur could have done it, but he left it for Prabhupada. Prabhupada could have done it. He left it for us. So, but it is not like, how do you, it's not just some, when we think of it like that, we think in terms of, we don't think of terms of how it is a family business and the entire family is involved in the business. And the very fact that the entire family is involved is the core element of the trust, is the core element of the whole thing. It's a family thing. So everybody in the family is engaged in it, you know. So yes, uh, it's true that if La Prabhupada wanted, he could have done it. If Bhaktivinoda Thakur could have wanted, he could have done it. But these are, I don't know how to put it. Like, yeah, that is just to magnify their glories. But at the same time, the very nature of spiritual activities, everything is done jointly, as Prabhupada said. I mean, Bhaktivinoda, but he wanted us to do it. So that's just a very what do you say? It's a constitutional reality that it's always a joint endeavor. So yes, Prabhupada said, "What can we do? We can only try." That is what it means. No, that we should try, and at the same time, uh, Prabhupada trying is it's a kind of a vague thing. It is more than just trying. It is like, I mean, I'm just trying to explain this. Suppose there is a 2 ton of steel in front of you, 2,000 kilograms. Can you move it? No, impossible. But the same 2,000 kilograms of steel in the form of a car, you can move it because it has been designed in a certain manner. Okay, so that is how the jiva acts in this material world, or just how it is. It's a combination of factors, but still you have to act. Otherwise, why should we get karma? No, if nothing is in our hands, why should we get karma? We are getting karma, no, by good and bad. Why? So are we okay? Krishna says in one place, Prakriti is the doer, but that is not meant in a literal sense. If Prakriti is the doer, then we should get no rewards and punishments. Why? We're not responsible. No, that is not how it is. So we have to understand the analogy of the car, for example. Are we doing something or just we are trying? No, we are actually doing something. but we are doing something. Not We can't move 2 tons of steel. We are being provided with an arrangement to move that steel, but we are doing something. So it is beyond just wishing. It is also acting. But we cannot act independently and get all the results. No. The 5 factors of action, Krishna says. Initially, he says Prakriti does doing everything. Later, it says 5 factors of action. That is just to emphasize that Prakriti is very strong. That's what he's emphasizing there. That's Vedic language. Normally, they emphasize something very strongly. And later on, you'll see there'll be some clarification. If you touch the stool of an animal, you take bath. It will say, no, Kaudang is not a. So that's a very nature, just to emphasize the point. So it is not that it's only trying, but there is also something beyond that. Acting also. Hope that's
Thank
clear.
you. Yes, yes. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Sushmita Mataji, you also raised your hand.
Yes, Mataji. Um, Prabhuji, I was just trying to understand on the point of attitude. Uh, I was thinking attitude would also depend on the nature, the gunas that we are predominantly, affected by. And so, one thing I was thinking, if the attitude is based on that, and secondly, if the attitude is can be influenced, you know, um, that that
Attitude is based on the guna. You're right. And attitude can also be influenced.
Yeah. So I mean, like, of course, I mean, through the teachings and everything, then we realize that whether we are aligned or the attitude is aligned to receive the knowledge and to progress in the bhakti in the right mood.
Correct.
So then, right. Thank you, Prabhuji.
But ultimately, Mati, still, despite all that being said, there is something which is, I mean, I don't know how to put it. There is a manifestation of the attitude. Okay. And then there is the, see, all of us have something. That's why it's proper to say, no? That if one is sincere, one will take to this process, right? That is not dependent on anything else.
Correct.
Okay. But there is a certain manifestation of the sincerity through attitude, But like, for example, when you read the Krishna, when we sing Guru Mukha Padmavakya song, Guru Vandana song, then we see the manifestation, how that attitude should, I mean, what should it be? What should be the manifestation of that sincerity? This is how it should be. Guru Mukha Padmavakya or Chitete Korea. This is how it should be. You understand what I'm trying to say, no?
To be aligned into that.
Yeah, but even without any of it, okay, we need to have that fundamental sincerity that I want, I mean, whatever, that is in our hands. Even though whatever we may be influenced by, there is certain thing called free will, okay,
Right.
which is in our hands. So despite everything else, whatever we may hear or learn, if we don't decide to engage our free will, then what can be done? That free will, engagement of free will is called the sincerity. Okay.
Yes.
So you could say, what should we do? Okay. What should we do is we should engage our free will. Okay. And how should we do? That is how we should do, through the attitude. And what is the correct attitude? Then all these things are explained. Okay. But what I'm trying to say, there's something more fundamental than how to do it. There's something of what to do. Okay. That is our free will. Free will. We have to engage. What should we do? We should engage our free will to serve the Lord. How shall we engage our free will? Through proper attitude. Okay. And then we study, okay, what is the element of that? But what we should do is completely dependent on us. It's not dependent on some external factor.
And also the degree of the attitude that you're holding. You think that you have the attitude if you're not completely aligned with what is, is how you.
Correct.
Then that also matters because you suit
Correct.
yourself. You suit
Correct,
yourself.
exactly.
I'm abiding by these, points, but I mean, this is okay. I think we can overlook this, or it may not make so much of a difference.
Correct, you're right. So only what is in our control, how we need to learn. Definitely,
Mhm.
definitely. So attitude has to be learned, definitely.
Yes. And also to have the attitude to learn. So that should be there.
No, that's why I said that. No, that is why I'm saying that is not the attitude, technically speaking. It is the
Yeah.
use of free will.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
What should we do? Okay. What we should do is take up to the process of Krishna consciousness
Mm.
and develop the right attitude. Take and develop. Okay. This
Mhm.
is what is in our hands, for sure.
Right.
How then the question of how do we develop comes up. We know what should be done. Then there's question of how it should be done. What should be done is fully in our control. That is fully in our control. I can surrender or not surrender. That what is fully in my control. How
Yes.
we need help. We need to understand. Okay, this is how it is. This is how. I mean, Krishna also tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, "Ekeha kurunandana." Don't be your intelligence should not be many. All these things he says. So
Mhm.
that is called how. But what is complete in our hands? How we need to learn.
Understood. Yes, Rohit. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rohit. Should
Attitude
I?
definitely is part of how. How, yeah. It is not
Okay.
automatic. Yes, I agree with you. Fully.
Should I get to the text, Rohit?
Oh yeah, I forgot that we haven't finished the thing, right?
Okay.
Okay.
I just shared.
Yes, ma'am.
Lord Chaitanya pacified the Bhattacharya and asked him to go home. The Bhattacharya again began to praise the Lord and said, You have descended to deliver all the fallen souls of this material world. That project is not so difficult for you, but you have turned a stone-hearted man like me into a devotee, and that is very wonderful. That is very wonderful indeed. Although I was very expert at logical arguments and grammatical explanations of the Vedas, I was as hard as a lump of iron. But your influence and temperature were so great that you could melt even a hard piece of iron like me. Lord Chaitanya then returned to his place, and the Bhattacharya sent Gopinath Acharya to him with various kinds of prasadam from the Jagannath temple. The next day, the Lord went to the temple of Jagannath early in the morning to attend Mangalarti. The priest in the temple brought him a garland from the deity and also offered him various kinds of prasadam. The Lord was very much pleased to receive them, and he at once went to the house of the Bhattacharya, taking the prasadam and flower garland to present to him. Although it was early in the morning, the Bhattacharya understood that the Lord had come and was knocking on his door. He at once rose from his bed and began to say, Krishna, Krishna. This was heard by Lord Chaitanya. When the Bhattacharya opened the door, he saw the Lord standing there, and he was very much pleased to see him early in the morning. Receiving him with all care, the Bhattacharya offered him a nice seat, and both of them sat there. Lord Chaitanya then offered him the prasadam he had received in the temple of Jagannath, and the Bhattacharya was very glad to receive this prasad from the hands of Lord Chaitanya himself. Indeed, without taking his bath and without performing his daily duties or even cleansing his teeth, he immediately began to eat the prasadam. In this way, he was freed from all material contamination and attachment. As the Bhattacharya began to eat the prasadam, he recited a verse from the Padma Puran. There it is stated that when the prasadam is received, it must be eaten immediately, even if it has become very dry or old, or even if it is brought from a distant place, or even if one has not completed executing his daily duties. Since it is enjoined in the Shastras that the prasadam should immediately be taken, there is no restriction of time, place, or atmosphere. The order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be followed. There are restrictions one must follow before accepting food from various people, but there are no restrictions on accepting prasadam from all kinds of people. Prasadam is always transcendental and can be taken under any condition. Lord Chaitanya was very much pleased to see that the Bhattacharya, who had always obeyed the rules and regulations strictly, accepted prasadam without following any rules and regulations. Being so pleased, Lord Chaitanya embraced the Bhattacharya and they both began to dance in transcendental ecstasy. In that ecstasy, Lord Chaitanya exclaimed, "My mission in Jagannath is now fulfilled. Jai. I have converted a person like Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. I shall now be able to attain Vaikuntha without fail." The missionary goal of a devotee is to convert simply one person into a pure devotee. Then the devotee's admission to the spiritual kingdom is guaranteed. The Lord was so much pleased there with the Bhattacharya that he began to bless him repeatedly. "Dear Bhattacharya, now you are a completely pure devotee of Lord Krishna, and Krishna is now very much pleased with you. From today, you are free from the contamination of this material body and the entanglement under the spell of the material energy. You are now fit to go back to Godhead, back home." The Lord then cited a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 2:742. येषां स एष भगवान् दययेद अनन्तः सर्वात्मनाश्रित पदो यदि निर्वैलिकम् ते दुष्तराम् अतितरन्ति च देवमायां नैषां ममाहम् इति धीस्वा श्रीगालभक्षये. Whoever takes complete shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is favored by the Supreme Lord, who is known to be unlimited. Such person also receives permission to cross the ocean of nations. However, one who is under the misconception that his material body is himself cannot receive the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After this incident, Lord Chaitanya returned to his place and the Bhattacharya became a pure and faultless devotee. Since he had formerly been a great academic scholar, the Bhattacharya could only have been converted by the causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya. From that day forward, the Bhattacharya never explained any Vedic literature without explaining devotional service. Gopinath Acharya, his brother-in-law, was very much pleased to see the Bhattacharya's condition, and he began to dance in ecstasy and vibrate the transcendental sound. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Mataji, I think you can stop there because I have to go to Guru Maharaj to render some service.
No problem.
One quick question or reflection if anyone wants to ask her.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
I found that where Prabhupada is saying. Prabhupada is saying that I don't claim that I'm a pure devotee or perfect, but my only qualification is that I am trying to follow the instruction of the perfect. He's saying that I'm trying to following the instruction of my spiritual master. And one more place, Prabhupada says that I have only one qualification, that I have strong faith in the instruction of my spiritual master. So these two
Yes.
things I was unable to remember that time. Thank you, Ruchi.
Everything in our movement is connected to preaching, that you need to remember this. So if you are if you are practicing whatever you can preach, I mean, just by practicing, sometimes you're preaching. For example, you are saying that you may not be able to go out because of your health and all those things. But if you practice with the idea that this is going to benefit me, and everybody can see also that despite bad health, Krishna consciousness can be practiced. So that way, you're also benefiting the others, if you think of it like that. But yeah, so it's possible for everybody in every condition of life to be conscious of two things. One is practicing for one's own self, and doing it as an example for others. So people can preach in various ways. The best way to preach is by being an example oneself. Of course, Prabhupada said the best way to preach is by distributing the books. But what he meant there was that those who have the ability to do it can do it. But otherwise, even the Prabhupada said when we're distributing the books, he said that purity is the force. So if you're pure, then the book distribution would be effective. So yes, book distribution is a means of preaching. The Prabhupada said the best and all that. But that is for those who can do it. But ultimately, it is not a question of what you can do or what you cannot do. Everything comes down to attitude. So if you have the right attitude, then that is absolute. It is not like Prabhupada said, it's not the deity worship is less important than book distribution. It's not like that. I mean, when Prabhupada says that's like it is a kind of a gradation which we cannot understand with our material senses. So it's not that okay, everybody has to leave the temple and go out and book distribution. It's not possible. Then how will the deity worship go on? How will someone cook? But we see everything that we do in relation to the Sankirtan movement. And the main element of the Sankirtan movement is book distribution and chanting. That's what Prabhupada meant. But we see how we are all connected together. It is one, how do you say, it's one team. So it is not that, okay, somebody is distributing out on the street and you're doing something else, you're disconnected. No. The Vaisheshika Prabhu came out with a slogan, no, one world, one team. So we're all one team of Prabhupada. Everybody performs a different role. A goalkeeper does one thing, forward does something else, defender does something else. But everybody does different things. But it's one team. So you are the world, one team, Sankirtan.
Rosie, I beg forgiveness. I'm not able to serve you, but still I beg you that please bless me. It's this 1 month. I may not skip my single round. Please, Prabhuji, please bless me for this.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining, and we'll resume again next Thursday. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर भक्तवृंद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे।